I'd like to call the Tuesday, March 6, 2018 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Ms. Brown, would you please take the roll?
Florence. Here. Mumgard. Here. Gaines. Here. Glover. Here. Jaworski. Here. Klug. Here. Stubbe. Here. Ingberg.
Here. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. And do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
That's correct.
The current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. We've got a presentation tonight, an exciting one for most people, annual audit. Jody, you want to come up and introduce yourself and give us an update?
Now my job's more exciting than that. I'm Jody Rennie, audit partner with HSMC Horizon. And what we put up on the screen, and it's also in the audit report that you received, is kind of a summary of the audit. It's the best way to go through it. There's a couple different audit reports that we issue. The first one is on the financial statements, and you received an unmodified opinion. That is actually the best opinion that you can get. Seems kind of weird they name it that. And then we do a report on your internal controls. And we did not, there were no material weaknesses identified, and there were no significant deficiencies reported. And then we also do some compliance testing to make sure you're filing your budget timely and some of those tests, and there were nothing to report there. And then the last report that we do, whenever you spend more than $750,000 in federal funds, we're required to do a single audit. And so this year you had actually spent more than $750,000. The program that we looked at was the highway planning and construction, and it was not more than $750,000, but it was your largest grant that you had actually received. And so we performed a test on that, and you received an unmodified opinion, and there were no findings that we were required to report. So that pretty much summarizes. If anybody has any questions.
Audit committee, any comments from the audit committee? Because I spent quite a bit of time with Jody and reviewing that. Mr. Mumgard.
Yeah, I would just, the audit committee recommends approval of the audit report. We did have some discussion about various features, including, the areas of city government where it's a cash operation. Those tend to often be problem areas. I would point out one thing that we can take great satisfaction in that they reported that all of the recommendations that had been made in the past for improvements were followed through with by city staff, and that city staff was very cooperative and assisting the auditors in improving the system. So I would commend them for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Nancy, as you know, we file this for the Certificate of Achievement. You've received that every year. You actually got it again last year, so she will be filing this again. So she does a really good job with your financial reporting, and they give us recommendations on things that they would like us to implement also, and she actually implemented all of those this year. So she'll submit that for certificate again.
Thank you for what you do on diving into the books.
Thank you.
And I think, Nancy, probably the biggest thanks goes to you and your team. We've gotten great audits every single year, and with that CAFA report, we've actually gotten the CAFA award, 4 years in a row? Something like that.
It's probably been 8.
Has it the actual award? Okay, so
I don't know.
5+
Seems like it's
years.
been forever. 6. Okay.
And I think what's important for people to understand is only a small percentage of municipalities that even do the CAFA, because that's not required. That's an extra step, and then that's an independent review by other bodies, and then to get the award after that, I mean, it's very few municipalities that get that. So
it is.
Congratulations, Nancy.
It is, and I'm sure that helps with your bond.
It does.
Ratings too, because you provide a ton of historical information, which helps them.
Yeah.
So
appreciate all your work on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Myers, Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As you all know, we have a new city's website. I just had Trent load the neighborhood matching grants program to the website. As you know, $2,500 is dedicated to each ward for a qualifying project. Now an applicant can go online and submit an application online. And so far this fiscal year, no grants have been awarded. So we encourage you to get your groups active and submit an application for our consideration. Also, Mayor Black and I attended a United Cities meeting on Monday. We discussed a variety of legislative bills. Of major importance was LB 44, which has advanced to final reading. This bill requires remote sellers to remit state sales tax. United Cities were a little concerned about the language, and we've asked for some clarification and actually an amendment to that bill to ensure that it includes local option sales tax as well. So we'll be following that one along with a couple others. Also, just wanted to let you know I did have a follow-up meeting with Dr. Rickley from the school district regarding our past discussions on an SRO K-9 unit. I've provided him some scenarios on cost share arrangements, so that is in his court, so I'm waiting, giving him a little opportunity to take a look at that and see if we can still reach a solution there. And lastly, working with Chief Lyons to schedule a time, probably within the next 60 days, maybe the last meeting in April, to conduct some security training with the elected officials. I mean, specific if there's an incident in this room and how that's handled. So you can look forward to hearing from us on that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion. Motion by Councilman Klug. Second. Second by Councilman Gaines. Do we have any proponents? Any opponents? Any council discussion? Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a point about C4 on the agenda, which is the annual concrete repairs, and I see that the recommended low bid was a little bit over $390,000, and there's $600 and some thousand dollars that was budgeted, and I'm glad to see that staff is recommending that they look at adding additional areas in to kind of make up and use what was available in the budget, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I know several council members have continued to raise the importance of the in-city street repairs, so that's to that goal, so thank you for that comment. Any other comments? If not, please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item D1, Ordinance 1802. An ordinance to approve a change of zone from AG agricultural to R4 multifamily residential for the property legally described as tax lot 7A of section 28, township 14 north, range 12 east, together with tax lot 9A of section 21, township 14 north, range 12 east of the 6 p.m. Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located on the northwest corner of South 96th and Lincoln Road. The applicant is Jeff Elliott, Lincoln Way. Is there a council member that will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Stubbe. Next is item D2, Ordinance 1803. An ordinance to approve a change of zone from LI Limited Industrial and GC General Commercial to LI Limited Industrial and GC General Commercial for the property legally described as tax lot 7 in the northwest quarter of section 35, township 14 north, range 11 east of the 6 p.m. Sarpy County, Nebraska, together with part of the northwest quarter of section 35, together with that part of northeast quarter of section 34, township 14 north, range 11 east of the 6 p.m. said Sarpy County, lying south and east of the I-80 right-of-way, generally located south of Highway 370 between I-80 and South 156th Street. The applicant is Dowd Grain Company, Inc., Steel Ridge South. Is there a council member that will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Jaworski. Thank you. E1, Ordinance 1801, an ordinance to approve a change of zone from AG agricultural to R4 PUD2 multifamily residential with a PUD2 overlay for the property legally described as a tract of land being located in part tax lot 6, a tax lot located in part of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter and part of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, section 21, township 14 north, range 12 east of the 6 p.m. Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located northeast of Whitmus Drive and Cornhusker Road. The applicant is Woodland Homes, Inc., Granite Lake Phase 3. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Proponents.
Good evening. Mark Westergaard with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, here on behalf of Woodlands Homes. Jerry Torres on the applicant. So this is the far north phase of Granite Lake, and this was behind the other phases because of some issues with respect to the timing of Cornhusker Road, some wetlands issues, some PUD issues, but those are resolved now, and this sort of catches this portion of the plat up with the rest of the plat. Probably won't see a final plat on this particular project for a while, just because the dam site will be under construction. Cornhusker Road needs to be finished. Whitmas Drive needs to be extended up. That network of streets need to be completed before we'd be able to proceed with actual development here. But things are proceeding at Granite Lake very successfully, and this is 30 lots that would be actually located north of Cornhusker. So. And there's a PUD along with it with some trails and some bird watching and wildlife areas that provide the benefits to the PUD. So there are no conditions. We would request your approval this evening.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do you have any opponents? Close the Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm just curious, it's identified as being multifamily, but it's individual lots with individual single-family homes, so why is it identified as being multifamily?
Mr. Gibbons?
Excuse me. The project itself is what they would consider as it's not multifamily. They are single-family lots. They are a villa concept, so they're a smaller unit, and they have closer setbacks. So it's probably just a grammatical error in the report.
Thank you very much. I'll close the public hearing. Next is item F1, approval of the minutes from the February 19, 2018 City Council retreat. This was tabled from last council meeting on February 20th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the February 19th, 2018 City Council retreat? Motion by Councilman Florence. Second by Mr. I saw it both ways. Mr. Glover. And I believe there's going to be a motion to amend. Ms. Klug.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend. Passed out in front of all the council members is some updated minutes. These minutes just provide a little more detail to be put on record so that we have it to look back in the future.
Very good. Appreciate that. Everybody should have that. It is the minute record, and it's noted as amended. So that we have a motion to amend. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Gaines. Do we have any proponents on the motion to amend? Any opponents? Council discussion? Please vote on the motion to amend.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion is amended. Is there any other discussion? Please vote on the original motion as amended.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Item F2, Resolution R180038. This is a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve a preliminary plat for the property legally described as Tax Lot 6, located in part of the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter and part of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, Section 21, Township 14 North, Range 12 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located northeast of Whitmas Drive and Cornhusker Road. The applicant is Woodland Homes, Inc., Granite Lake, Phase 3. I'll open the public hearing. Proponents.
Mark Westergaard, no further comments, but I'd answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Any opponents? Close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution R180038? Motion by Councilman Ingberg, second by Councilwoman Klug. Any other discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F3, Resolution R180041, also a public hearing and a vote. A resolution to approve an application for moving a building or a structure permit to move one building from its current location at 12505 Highway 370 to its future location at 13730 South 105th Street. The applicant is Tim Barrett. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Proponents, and if you'd state your name for the record.
Tim Barrett, just here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? Anybody opposed? I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution R180041? Motion by Councilman Glover, Second by Councilman Jaworski. Any council discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, sir. Item F4, Resolution R180046, a resolution to approve the submittal of substandard and blighted question with respect to certain real property located in downtown Papillion to the Planning Commission pursuant to Nebraska Revised Statute 182109. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R180046? Motion by Councilman Stubbe. Second by Councilman Ingberg. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Anybody neutral or just want to have questions or comments? Any council discussion? Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, I guess, Mayor, this is something that's new to Papillion, so it might be beneficial, Mayor, to kind of go through as far as what this means and everything.
I will. It's actually, as far as I know, it's the very first time we have done this in Papillion. It's a very common practice in other jurisdictions. I think probably every jurisdiction around here does it on a regular basis, but it is the first time we've ever done it. If people are familiar with the concept of TIF, or tax increment financing for redevelopment of older areas, that's what this is for. The intent, I think, is in older areas that need to be redeveloped. There's a lot of times some extra cost a developer has to incur to do those around public infrastructure, and it's a way to use some of the increased valuation of the property tax once it's redeveloped to help repay part of that. The area that we're looking at for potential redevelopment, it's directly tied to city-owned land. The city owns 3 buildings that are all kind of contiguous in the downtown area. And the one that started the whole thing was the Public Works facility. So once we built the new Public Works facility, the question became, what do we do with the old one? And so that discussion's been going on now for about 3 years. And there's been some concepts developed about maybe some things that could occur and what do we want to accomplish. But once we start talking about the Public Works facility, if we start thinking broader about downtown and what we want downtown to be and continued growth of downtown, that brings into play the old Public Works building, the white office building, which is now where the rec department's going to be, because now that's going to be vacated in 2 years or less than 2 years when the community center opens. And then at some point, the fire station has always talked about a need to move out of downtown for response time purposes. So don't know when, but what role does a fire station play? And so we've been talking for 3 years as a group about how do we appropriately reuse those buildings. And when we talk to developers, the idea of TIF being needed to be available has come into the conversation, and it's probably appropriate. And then I think it was last year, as some of these informal discussions about what do we do with it, that's when we hired Studio Insight, a design planning firm, to help just conceptually look at what could it be based on some size of land, scale of buildings, floodplain, and that type of thing. And Studio Insight did a report. But when we started to engage Studio Insight to look at our 3 buildings, it did open up the question a little bit about, there are some neighbors who are directly next to that area, and we opened the discussion with a couple of the neighbors, primarily the Stones, and Tilmer is here, so thank you for coming, about if we redeveloped it, what's that mean to the neighbors? And we want to make sure that we weren't preventing the neighbors from doing what they want to do, but at the same time, if we redevelop it and that enables them to do something, we want to make sure it all logically fit. And so the Studio Insight report looked at not only the city land, but over to the Tilmers and the angled road there. That was kind of the scope of that work. And so from that larger body, that's then what we had those boundaries as part of the blight study. And so the blight study looked at that broader area, but as we move forward with our redevelopment project, we'll only be looking at the city portion of that land, but this would enable TIF down the road if it was needed and wanted by the private side, the Tilmers, to leverage it as well. Does that long-winded explanation help? Okay. So this is the first step in that process. Once we do this tonight, there's a whole process for it to go through the Planning Commission, and then it'll probably be in about the June timeframe, I believe. We will appoint a committee that will kind of manage the process. It'll be between 5 and 7 people, 4 of which will probably be a committee of the council. And they'll kind of manage that redevelopment process. So the next step will be the redevelopment plan, which is kind of the public RFP that says, developers, here's our goals, respond with a plan for the city-owned land. And then once they respond back, then that would be contracts coming back here of, do we sell the land, how do we redevelop, and then that type of thing. So long process. This is the first step, and in June we'll probably start to really redefine that. Mr. Mumgard.
I'm going to have a bit of a disclaimer. I will go on record as saying I am not a fan of TIF. I, over the last 20, 30 years, sat and watched neighboring cities use TIF, and I scratch my head, and I think, what the heck are they thinking? Well, why is that? And there are times when I think that TIF has been misused by elected officials, probably with good intentions, but it isn't what I think the statute intended and what it should intend. And so, and then I look at the growth of Papillion over the last 20 plus years, and it's hard to envision any place in Papillion that would qualify at all under any stretch of the definition of blighted and substandard. Something that needs assistance by the taxpayers to get development, because that's really what TIF's all about, is that the taxpayers come in, and this ain't going to happen until the taxpayers step up and give assistance. So throughout the time I've been on the council, any mention of TIF, I'm saying, you got to be kidding me. We don't need a TIF in Papillion. This is different because of the large percentage of it that is publicly owned land. I think that TIF here can be rationally used as another option that can be a vehicle for the city to take city-owned land and create opportunities. And certainly creating opportunities in this area would be wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Restaurants, using the historic buildings for unique things that draw people into Papillion, perhaps going as far as having, lodging, hotels, residents downtown to further enhance our downtown area. Those are all possibilities, and I recognize the practicality of developers wanting, if they don't need it, they certainly want the assistance. So I think this is certainly a start to do the study, see whether this option is something that makes sense. I will approach it with some cynicism, and I will tell you that right up front. But it's something worth looking at. We shouldn't close the door too early, and so I'm going to vote for this and see how it all works out.
And to your point, what's nice is it's a pretty slow, deliberate process, very public, a lot of hearings and a lot of votes. So to your point, it's controlled. Mr. Glover.
Mayor, you touched on it a little bit, but I was wondering, the people that are affected, the landowners that are affected by this design that we have here, have they been contacted, or at what point would we sit down with them and say, this is an area that potentially we, as a city, would like to redevelop?
The couple of answers in there. We did, I think it was 6 years ago, we did the downtown chapter of the comprehensive plan, and that was about an 18-month process. Involved a lot of the downtown owners, and the outcome of that actually was the creation of that downtown business association. It sparked so much conversation. So conceptually, what do we want downtown to be? There has been a lot of conversation about that. Specific to the blight study in that area, when we were looking at that area, and we decided it might be smart at least to look at some of the neighboring lands so we don't negatively affect them, but we also create an advantage. If they want it, they can leverage what we're doing. We looked at the different plats that were in that area, and the largest landowner in that area were the Stones. And so we did reach out to them and met with them ahead of time to explain to them what we were doing and what we weren't doing, and invited them into the meetings with Studio Insight. And when we opened up that discussion, we tried to make it very clear, and I want to do it again publicly. We're not doing anything to say we're taking anybody's land. This isn't about eminent domain. It's still private rights. They can still do what they want to do. But we just want to make sure that their plans kind of sync with our plans, and that we don't landlock each other. We can kind of each do what we want to do, but if what we're doing helps them, then they can participate in that. So I would say we did invite the Stones in as the largest landowner. I think there's one or two other small ones in there. I would have to look to Mr. Sturzman to see if we've had direct conversations with them or not. But through this process, all the affected landowners are notified of all the public hearings, what we're doing, and all of that stuff as well.
Yeah, because I imagine once this hits paper and they open that up and they see their property as a blighted area.
It doesn't sound like a good thing, but once people understand it, it actually can be a very good thing in redevelopment areas. In fact, legislatures, I think, playing around with changing the term because it's got such a negative connotation when it's not.
Right. I
Mr.
just
Stubbe.
wanted to bring that up because I do think that that's an issue that people need to hear about, so.
And because I did mention him and he is here, I would offer the opportunity, if I misstated anything, feel free to clarify it, because I don't want to put words in your mouth or assumptions. So, Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, so Mr. Mumgard just kind of picked a few comments from me relative to TIF. So I'm not an expert on TIF, but in the job that I currently have within the city of Omaha, I've heard enough presentations related to TIF. And so one of the things is that it's one of the very few state-allowed economic development tools. And so what it allows a developer to do is to repurpose, redevelop structures that don't currently meet code. And so it's not really using taxpayer dollars. You're essentially using that difference between what the existing assessed value is and what the future value is because of the improvements that are being applied or being made to that particular structure. So that differential in what that property tax is used then to pay off that TIF loan.
And that differential would not exist but for them doing that project.
That is correct.
Correct.
That is correct.
Mr. Mumgard.
Yeah, I'll just follow up. Well, yeah, that's always been one of my concerns about TIF, in that conceptually, it's supposed to be used when a development would not occur without the assistance of TIF. And in that situation, well, sure, any increase that you get in the taxable value is bonus. It wouldn't have happened. And so the taxpayers really aren't giving anything up if it wouldn't have happened. I've seen the definition and the use of TIF over the years grow beyond that original concept. That original concept I'm all in favor of. So if you look at an area and you say, well, in the purest sense, if it ain't going to happen, then you're not giving anything up when you help it happen. But if it would have happened anyhow, and then you give it up, then clearly the taxpayers have given something up. And in large part, it's largely the school districts that suffer. Because this is public land, I'll clarify, because this is largely publicly owned land, it's not paying taxes anyhow. So any increase is 100% benefit to the taxpayers. That makes a difference to me. Then secondly, because we own it, we can make all sorts of deals. I mean, the city conceptually could overcome the obstacles that TIF are intended to overcome simply by lowering the price, making a better deal. So that's where I'm saying, well, in this instance, let's use it as an option because it might be something that'll work out. I still sit here and think, I'll wait and see because I'm not sure, it's going to happen. And then secondly, it's hard to imagine any place in Papillion that a developer wouldn't be interested in developing without the assistance of TIF. They're knocking on our door to come to Papillion. So I sit here and think, that's why over the years I've thought, nah, TIF may be useful elsewhere, but it's not useful in Papillion. but I'm open. I'll see what happens. And so you start with a study. Something good might come of it, so I'm open for something good.
And I think one of the advantages of following the process, and even if we don't get to the ultimate conclusion of offering TIF, as we go through the process, part of that is the redevelopment plan, which is basically an RFP out to the development community of how would you redevelop it, and then we get those responses back, and then that can start the negotiation of, yeah, we like your concept, let's now negotiate, and through that negotiation, maybe we don't even have to offer TIF, but I think the process gets us to our redevelopment, which I know is a council priority. Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, I would just say that this is not just one building, this is an area. So obviously, we have property owners in the area that potentially could take advantage of this particular opportunity. And again, I look at it from the perspective is that we recognize that we have a lot of pluses here in Papillion, and we have a lot of developers coming to this town, but obviously we do have areas within the community that are, again, that don't currently meet code, that maybe need improvements, and so giving them potentially an economic tool that allows them to potentially redevelop an area, I think is a positive. And again, I think the other thing that we really need to look at is, once this is developed, is that what's the internal processes that are we going to use to essentially recognize that, yes, if somebody wants to do TIF, do we agree with them actually moving forward with individual projects? So I think we need to establish some internal controls also to actually look at those individual projects.
And we've already been developing a lot of that internally of what the process is, so we'll factor that in as well. And just one clarification, so people understand TIF, it is for public infrastructure. It's not actually paying what developers' private costs. It is for public infrastructure. Do we have any other council discussion? Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. It's all the regular agenda items. I don't think any committees have met. Do we have any comments from the floor? Anybody want to make any comments? Any council comments? No real updates from the last couple of weeks. It was actually, I was out of town for a week. We did have the United Cities meeting. Again, most of that was legislative. We're halfway through, a little over halfway through the legislative session. I think yesterday was day 37 of a 60-day session. And I don't think they've addressed the budget yet, so that's probably going to take most of the time. So probably not a lot of work will be done. I don't think they've gotten to a lot of the priority items. So probably not a lot we can influence unless something's actually got a priority designation that's moving along. But if you're watching the legislature, have any questions on anything, let Ms. Myers or myself know. We'll make sure we're watching those items. Other than that, do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Stubbe. Please vote.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
We are adjourned.